Candace Owens has just spoken up and said something very big. For a long time, millions of people were too scared to say these things out loud. They only whispered them in secret. But now Candace is saying it clearly. Meghan Markle's story does not make sense. She believes that the Duchess of Sussex has told lies. These are not small lies. They are big, bold lies that were hidden behind the fancy and polite world of the royal family. But if people find out the truth, it could change everything we think we know about her. This time, the news is different. We are not just hearing what people think or guess. We are hearing from a real person who was on the inside. This person worked at the hospital. They were there when it happened. They know how things really work behind the closed doors where regular people cannot go. The details they are sharing are not the kind of nice, perfect stories you read in fancy magazines. They are not the practiced answers you hear in TV interviews. These are raw and real facts. These are the kinds of truths that only come out when the cameras are off and nobody is listening. This is a story that was supposed to stay a secret. It mixes the shocking things Candace Owens found with the real stories from inside Portland Hospital. If these stories are true, it does more than just put a small dent in Meghan's story. It breaks the story completely wide open. So get ready. The fairy tale story about baby Archie being born is about to crash into real life. It will leave you with a lot of big questions. 103. In Prince Harry's book called Spare, he wrote a sentence that nobody can forget. He said that Meghan had 2 epidurals. She gave birth at Portland Hospital, and they were back home at Frogmore Cottage within 2 hours. Let's stop and think about that for a minute. 2 epidurals and back home in just 2 hours. For anyone who knows even a little bit about how babies are born, this sounds very confusing. It sounds like puzzle pieces from 3 different puzzles that do not fit together. It makes you want to stop and say, wait a minute. We know that the drive from Portland Hospital in London to their home at Frogmore Cottage takes about 1 hour. Sometimes it takes even longer if there is traffic. So if we believe exactly what Harry wrote, that leaves only 1 hour. That means Meghan would have had to have the baby, rest and heal, pack all their bags, and leave the hospital in just 60 minutes. That is very fast. And remember, he said she had 2 epidurals. An epidural is a serious medical treatment for pain. Doctors need to watch you closely after you have one. They need time to make sure you are okay. That is not the only part that makes people wonder. Meghan herself has given 3 different reasons for why the news reporters were not told when Archie was born. First, she said they did not want to block the emergency door. Then, she said the reporters were being mean and racist, so they did not deserve a picture. But she also said that they did tell the press, but nobody came. That is 3 different versions of the same story. None of them match the others. Then there is one more thing. The royal rules say that the queen must be told the moment a royal baby is on the way. But in this story, that did not happen. If Meghan really was at that hospital under royal protection, her security guards would have broken very old rules. From the very beginning of Archie's story, there are so many things that do not match up, and we are only at the start. 243. Before we go any further, we need to look at Portland Hospital. This is not like a normal hospital with a busy emergency room where anyone can go. Portland is a private hospital. It is very exclusive, which means it is for people with a lot of money. It is designed to treat you like a queen. But here is the most important part. It does not have an emergency department for the public. It has 0. Portland does have some special rooms for babies who are born too early or are sick. It also has rooms for moms who have high-risk health problems, but if a really big emergency happens that is too dangerous, Portland does not keep you there. They transfer you. They send you to a different hospital that has the big machines and doctors for huge crises. This is very important to understand. Portland looks beautiful with fancy lights, flowers, and big suites, but that is only half of the story. Yes, it is glamorous, but it is not built to handle major disasters after a certain point. So when we hear stories about 2 epidurals and rushing home, we have to ask a question. Could this fancy hospital even handle the story Harry and Meghan told? Or are they selling us a spa version of the story instead of the real medical truth about having a baby? 357. Now we get to one of the weirdest details, the 2 epidurals. If you have ever talked to a doctor or a nurse who helps deliver babies, you know how an epidural works. It is not like a pill that you can just take 2 of. It is a procedure. The doctor puts a tiny tube into your back, near your spine. Once the tube is there, the doctors can turn the medicine up or down. They can make it stronger or lighter, but it is just one tube and one system. So when Harry says Meghan had 2 epidurals, doctors look very confused. That is not how it works. To have 2 epidurals, a doctor would have to take the tube out completely and then put a new one in. They almost never do this while a woman is in labor unless something is broken. It would be like saying you put 2 steering wheels in one car just to keep driving. It doesn't make sense. Then there is the story about the laughing gas. Harry said he used up all the laughing gas that was meant for Meghan, but think about that. That gas is medicine for the patient. A nurse is always watching it. Hospitals do not just leave tanks of gas lying around for people to play with like toys at a party. So either Harry is making up a funny story, or they broke all the hospital's safety rules in a very strange way. 509. Let's talk about time. Time is the one thing you cannot skip when having a baby. Harry's story makes it sound like a race. He says the baby was born, they packed their bags, and they were home in 2 hours. But anyone who has ever left a hospital with a new baby knows it is not like a drive-through restaurant. Even if the birth goes perfectly and there are no problems, doctors usually keep the mom for a full day or two. If the mom had an epidural, she has to stay longer. This is because the body needs to wake up from the medicine. Doctors have to check her blood pressure and make sure she can walk. They have to make sure there is no surprise bleeding. Now imagine if she had a C-section surgery. That means cuts and stitches. That means a risk of infection. Usually you have to stay for 3 or 4 days. If you leave earlier, you are taking a huge risk with the mother's health. So when we hear 2 epidurals and home in 2 hours, medical workers say that is impossible. You do not walk out of surgery like you are leaving a dinner party. And if she had a sickness called preeclampsia, going home that fast would be very dangerous. We are not just nitpicking details. This is about medical safety. Childbirth is not just about the baby coming out. It is about keeping everyone safe in the hours after. 624. Here is where things get even stranger. Harry said the hospital room looked like a wellness retreat or a spa. He said there was a bouncing ball, a bathtub, and candles glowing everywhere. It sounds like a dreamy, relaxing night. But Meghan was in her late 30s when Archie was born. Doctors call this a geriatric pregnancy. That sounds like a mean word, but it just means a pregnancy for someone over 35. Here is the catch. Doctors are usually much more careful with older moms. They do not usually suggest a relaxing spa night. They want to monitor the mom closely. They want fewer risks and a clear plan. So the picture Harry paints does not fit. You usually don't see doctors telling high-risk moms to use candles and water births. Those things might be okay for a young mom with no health risks, but not for someone who needs doctors watching her. It is like saying a bank left its safe unlocked because it looked prettier that way. The details feel staged. It feels like they are trying to paint a picture of being in total control, instead of showing the messy reality of a hospital. And if Meghan really was sick with preeclampsia, the idea of scented candles is not charming. It is alarming. 740. Now we are at the center of the storm, preeclampsia. This is a big medical word, but for moms it is terrifying. Preeclampsia is when a mom gets very high blood pressure while she is pregnant or right after the baby is born. It is not just numbers on a chart. It can cause seizures, strokes, or make your organs stop working. The only cure is to deliver the baby and then watch the mom very, very closely to make sure she gets better. Our insider from the hospital gave birth at Portland years before Meghan. She had this same sickness. Her blood pressure went super high. To keep her alive, doctors gave her a strong medicine called magnesium sulfate. It is a tough treatment that burns and makes you feel weak, but it stops the seizures. In her case, it got even worse and attacked her liver. She was not sent home quickly. She was not walking around with candles and eating takeout food. She was under constant watch. She had machines monitoring her and tubes in her arms. Doctors checked on her every single hour. So when Harry's book says Meghan had a quick birth with 2 epidurals and went home fast, it sounds fake to people who have actually lived through that sickness. This is where the story changes from curious to scary. Preeclampsia is not something you can fix for a photo. It does not pause for a public relations story. If Meghan really had it, the hospital would have followed strict rules. There would be no leaving in 2 hours. There would be no fairy tale timeline. There would only be a mom fighting to stay healthy while doctors watched her every move. 9/16. Here is where the royal fairy tale crashes into the clock. According to Harry, Meghan was back home at Frogmore Cottage just hours after having Archie. But look at what happened next. Within a few weeks of the birth, the couple was flying all over the world. They went to Ibiza with Elton John. They went to Paris. They went to Italy. They went to New York to see Serena Williams. They even went to Toronto. Think about that. That is a lot of travel. It means long flights, late nights, and being in public. But if you're recovering from having a baby, especially if you had that high blood pressure sickness, you need to do the opposite. You need rest. You need doctors to check you. You need quiet time. Plus, Harry happily told the press that Meghan and Archie were home on the same day. That statement goes against everything we know about that sickness. Our hospital insider explained that you cannot treat it at home. You cannot just guess that your blood pressure is okay. It can spike up without warning. And what about the physical signs? Preeclampsia usually makes your hands, feet, and face swell up and look puffy. In the discussion, people noted that Meghan did not look swollen, except for a tiny bit in her cheeks. It doesn't prove anything for sure, but it is another puzzle piece that doesn't fit. The problem is simple but big. The story of Meghan's recovery sounds like a perfect movie. But the real medical reality sounds like a survival story. Those two worlds cannot both be true. 1043. Sometimes it is the tiny details that break a story apart. Harry said he left the hospital at 2:00 in the morning to go pick up chicken from a restaurant called Nando's. But Portland Hospital has private chefs who work 24 hours a day. You can get midnight meals, hot food, or fancy tea whenever you want. It is part of what you pay for. Also, Nando's usually closes around 11:00 at night. So where did he get that chicken from? Then there is the story about the secret elevator. Harry said there was a hidden way out of the hospital, like a secret royal door. But our insider, who actually had a baby there, says flatly, there is no secret elevator. She remembers being wheeled down the normal hallways just like everyone else. When the person hosting the discussion called the hospital to ask, the staff said the same thing. There is no secret elevator. These might sound like small mistakes, a late-night meal, or a hidden door. But in a story that already has missing time and medical things that don't make sense, these are like tiny cracks in a window. Each small crack spreads until the whole window shatters. 1151. As if the timelines in hospital stories weren't enough, there are other fights about what is true. One fight is about the doctor who delivered Archie. Reports said it was a doctor named Penelope Law, but later, another doctor denied that she was involved at all. One newspaper failed to check the facts, while another one dug deeper and fixed the mistake. That is not a small error. If the public was told one doctor delivered the royal baby when she really didn't, then what else was reported wrong? Then there is the story about the miscarriage. Harry wrote about burying the remains of their lost baby at home. But according to the laws in California, you cannot just do that if the pregnancy was under 20 weeks. The medical rules are different. His story does not match the laws. Add to this the detail about their friend Abigail Spencer. Her version of what happened clashed with Harry's version. It is like watching two actors reading different scripts for the same movie. These are not just fuzzy memories. They are breaks in the official story. They keep coming up no matter how hard people try to smooth them over. So we end up back where we started. We are staring at contradictions that are too big to ignore. If Meghan really had 2 epidurals, why doesn't the medical process match? If she had high blood pressure, why did she leave so fast? If the Queen was supposed to be told, why wasn't she? And if Portland is a luxury hotel hospital that sends serious cases away, how does it fit the story of a dramatic birth? The spa details, the midnight chicken, the secret elevator, and the fast exit, each one adds a layer to a fairy tale. It feels like it was written for a storybook, not a hospital chart. Candace Owens calls them lies. Our hospital insider shares her real medical truth. The deeper we dig, the more explosive it gets. This is not just about Archie being born. It is about trust. It is about what is said and what is hidden. It makes us wonder what it means when a very private story becomes a public show. At the end of the day, we are left